Hi, welcome to the Watercolour Westport Stories podcast. This is our first time coming to you live from Westport, Ontario, and it's the opportunity to share stories, to tell the events and introduce you to people and share the wonderful privilege that it is to be part of a meaningful community connected to nature and neighbor. We hope that you find something in what you hear that will inspire you, to inspire you not only where you live, but to inspire you to come see us and to come and experience Watercolour Westport for yourself. I'm here at Wafa Martin with founder and owner Stephen Rolston of Land Ark Homes, founder and visionary behind Watercolour Westport. Welcome, Stephen.
Thanks very much, Wafa. I'm looking forward to today.
Yeah, it's really a joy to be with you. And I think that one of the really interesting things about watercolor and here in Westport is that word inspiration. I know you and I listen to a lot of podcasts, so having one and sharing one with others is really a privilege. But that idea of inspiration, what inspired you to start a community in Westport where there hadn't been homes here for 100 years?
Well, my wife and I have been lucky enough that each of our families, we grew up having a cottage. And so one of the primary contributing factors that we'd like people to experience is this different quality of life that is so hard to articulate and put into words. It's this idea of having your home and cottage in one in a European walkable village. And so we think people can feel better and live longer in a walkable village, and that there's just this different quality of life where people can thrive and flourish when it's a walkable community.
Do you think that for most people that they understand what that impact is for walkability? I mean, it seems to me that it could be done anywhere, but why is it better here?
That's a great question, Wafa, because I got out of home building for about a dozen years. And I was serving as a volunteer in full-time Christian ministry. And wherever I would go around the world, I'd Google new homes, new home communities, and dozens of times every year, I would check out these new communities. And not too long ago, I really didn't even know what that word walkable meant. And it's kind of funny looking back now that something that I couldn't articulate when I was experiencing it. Every spring and fall in Niagara-on-the-Lake, I would go to this one community called the Village Niagara, and I'd walk around there, and I had no words, I had no vocabulary to describe how that community made me feel. And fortunately, through mutual friends a number of years ago, I met the founder of that community and his wife, John and Liz Hawley. And they began to articulate this whole idea of what smart growth is and what a true walkable community was. And that's what really motivated me to get back into home building and try, with our land here in Westport, to bring to life this different, mysterious of what is a walkable village.
Right, because some people would think you'd have to be like super fit. I have to be able to, endure these long distances of walking to get to what I need, that amenities are not necessarily that accessible. How is that? What's it like here? I mean, can people actually walk to what they need?
They can, and there's many communities that we hope to interview the founders of, like John Hawley in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and another number of communities that are across Canada, and the founders of different communities in the United States who have already been there and done that. And the founder of this movement really is a normal, regular, everyday guy by the name of Robert Davis, who has since passed. But what he was trying to do in a community called Seaside in Florida was bring to life his childhood experience of going to the ocean, going to the beach in Florida. And so Seaside was established 40-some years ago by a founder of a community wanting to create a walkable lifestyle in the middle of nowhere, Florida. It's 5 hours from Atlanta, it's 6 hours from Orlando. And it took off and has become world famous as a place where people can have all of their daily needs met within a 15-minute walk or bike ride. Things like groceries, the pharmacy, the library, the brewery, and the winery, we say here. And in their location, they had a bunch of different assets in terms of entrepreneurs bringing things to life. But the funny thing is, they had to do that from scratch. Here, Westport is really Canada's first cottage country, and it has more than a 200-year history because of the Rideau Canal waterway, and it being established such that there's already a thriving economic hub of sustainability. And so what we're doing here is just adding on to that with phase after phase of new homes, bringing new homes, new life, and new possibilities for people who would like to live really a car-free lifestyle. Because these days with Amazon or other services like that delivering things to your home, you really can walk to all your daily needs within 15 minutes of this community. Plus, you have the added bonus of not needing your home and a cottage, because really maybe 1/10 of your car trips would be realized in a place where all your daily needs are within a 10 or 15 minute walk. So that's what we think is so special about Westport, is it already has all this wonderful history, and there's 36 lakes within a 15-mile radius, and we're right at the base of Foley Mountain with Sand Lake on one side and the upper Rideau, part of the Rideau Canal waterway, and the Thousand Island waterway that go from Ottawa to Kingston.
So just to stay on that walkable for a minute, I think that when you're doing your land planning, though, there must have been some things that you had to do that were specific to the community to give it that access to the village, because there is, there's geography and there's different features and things that you've put in. Can you describe some of those?
Yeah. The biggest feature in the homes that we're building now is the fact that they have these massive big front porches. So before air conditioning, most rural farmhouses 125 years ago would have a great, what we call outdoor living room at the front of the farmhouse, and often on one side or the back they'd have another outdoor living room that would be, depending on the sun location, before air conditioning. That's how people cooled themselves, is they were the ones who got outside and they left the windows open for ventilation, but it was always much cooler on the front porch or the back porch. So really this whole idea of walkability is predicated on what was life like before the car. And before the car, everyone, if you lived in an urban environment, literally lived within a 15-minute walk of the grocery store and the hardware store and the bank and the post office. And that's what Westport is. Long before we showed up, it's been this thriving little village, a waterfront, timeless village that has this 200 years of being Canada's first cottage country.
Amazing.
So when we came along, our land was
Amazing.
right adjacent to the village, and this family had owned the property, and our land planner that we had worked with for many, many years told me about it.
Right.
And we acquired this piece of land almost 20 years ago when I got out of home building for a while.
So it's different than other communities that you've built, I think, also because that goal of being walkable means that you've put in sidewalks and nature trails and connectivity with a plan that says you're not going to dead end somewhere when you're out there for a walk. You're going to be able to reach another vista or venue, and that's unfolded beautifully here.
It has, and that's really one of the things we want to do with this podcast, is help connect existing neighbors one to another and help build this community of people who are looking for a different quality of life, a better, real and different, more and better quality of life that's possible in a small town when you can live somewhere when you can walk to all those daily needs if you want to.
Sure. I think it's exciting for young families too to consider that their child could set out safely in a village and walk to the arena for their skating lessons, or walk to school, or walk to the store and get that favorite piece of chocolate that they've been begging for all day from their mom or dad or whatever, that they have that independence and freedom. I think it's a leveling too, to be able to have accessibility because you have access to sidewalks and walking the way we did in our childhood even. And that has changed significantly with urban planning.
And that you've asked about, what things did we have to do? Yeah, putting in sidewalks. When I go back to a lot of these communities that we were lucky enough to be a part of helping bring to life, this is actually our 10th community. We've built more than 400 homes. And when we started, we were filling in other developers' communities, or filling in on Beverly Street in Stittsville, our first home. There were no sidewalks.
Right.
Because it was just expected in typical suburbia sprawl, that you got in your car, and that's where this idea of the soccer mom came from. You had to take your child to the amenities.
Well, you roll in your garage, you open the door, you roll in, shut the door behind you, and you don't really even walk outside sometimes. And given our winters, that can happen, but there's a lot of the seasons of life in a traditional neighborhood that you don't enter by your front door and you don't know your neighbors. And needing sidewalks it doesn't feel like it's relevant, because what would you use them for? Where would you go on them? But here, there's destinations and there's opportunity.
And the more time I spend here, that's what amazes me, is our land planner, Mark Snyder. He grew up in the village, and he had lived a lot of different places when we had met him working for an engineering firm, Macintosh Perry. And he told me it really is kind of the center of Eastern Ontario, because Montreal is 3 hours, Toronto is 3 hours, Ottawa's maybe an hour to an hour and a half, depending on where you're going, the Corel Centre or the Canadian Tire Centre to watch a hockey game. Or, the Ottawa airport is an hour and a half away, or downtown might be an hour and a half. But because Perth is only 25 minutes away, Smith Falls maybe 35 minutes, Kingston 45 minutes away, it's this undiscovered gem of Eastern Ontario, whereby some people call it Muskoka East. And a lot of people have different points of reference that they're coming at that lead them to conclude, oh, that's my point of reference. I was lucky enough to grow up in Oakville, Mississauga. So to me, one of the things I find amazing is our family used to go to Niagara on the Lake 50 years ago. I'm 59 years old. And so seeing Niagara on the Lake evolve before they had all the vineyards, when it was all just apple orchards, that's what Westport particularly reminds me of, or one of the communities that it reminds me of, because it's just this idyllic, naturally occurring retirement community. Some call it a NORC, a naturally occurring retirement community. But now we have so many young families moving here because of the quality of life. Is if they like hiking, or they like biking, or stand-up paddleboard, or canoeing, or kayaking. There's just so many things to do, situated as we are at the base of a mountain, surrounded by all these lakes.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's breathtaking. And it's inspiring, I think, to try new things too, at different stages of your life. You talked about walkable even being an aspect of longevity. And so adding to your longevity by having just natural movement in your day, and then being able to access all these natural wonders of the world around you. And you can get out there and do your swimming in the lake, or take up a paddleboard, or figure out how to run a kayak and enjoy nature in a different way.
And over the holidays, I bought myself, or my wife bought me a magazine, but it was funny. I was looking at it as well. It was a National Geographic magazine.
Okay.
And it is about 100 places that could change your life.
Oh,
and
interesting.
What I find interesting is Westport is a place that has already changed so many people's lives.
Oh, interesting.
Is we have about 65 families that have already bought here and are calling Westport home. And that's what we hope to do with the podcast, is just to interview a lot of these amazing people that have moved here.
Yes.
And it's interesting that a place is bringing them so much peace connected to nature and neighbor that it is changing their lives, a place. And that's what they talk about in the traditional neighborhood design movement, which I became aware of over the last 20 or so years, as opposed to conventional subdivision design. With conventional subdivision design, it's just a P loop, and they have an arterial road, and then it's called the geography of nowhere. There's nowhere to go because you're car dependent.
Right, exactly.
Whereas all these grids that they used to have in all major urban areas, 100, 150 years ago, there's so much variety in where you can walk on tree-lined sidewalks on both sides with these street trees providing such shade in the summertime as we'll do in the new phase, that it will look remarkably different. And that's what we hope to share a little bit more about what's possible, the art of the possible from a place.
From a place. And that place influences, so when you're able to walk, you're able to go those places, it influences your social interactions. And that I know we've talked about personally together over the years that we've known each other, just about how important it is for people to stay connected. So when you are out there on the sidewalk, you have those conversations with your neighbor. You get to know one another. You interact with each other, even if it's just a smile and a nod that you didn't have that morning when you started out by yourself.
And one of my friends, Gerald, he often comments, he'll walk or ride his bike to work because of that very reason. Is if he's driving, he can't have these meaningful social interactions with people. But if he's walking or riding his bike, he can stop and make time, because you can ruthlessly eliminate hurry in a place where everything is just in such close proximity that another friend of mine, Noah, talks about the fact that he doesn't have to get in the car and drive his kids to all the practices or events or activities. And he said it's just saved him, 10 or 20 hours a week of not having to be in the car driving his kids here, there, and everywhere. That
transform your life for sure.
Yeah.
Wow, imagine having that many extra hours in your week.
And that's really what he and his wife Pam, who we hope to interview, will share, is the different quality of life that's possible here.
Wow, that's exciting. Another thing that you talk about, and that we've talked about regularly in our own conversations about watercolor, is the preservation and stewardship of nature and the land that surrounds these homes. Maybe you can just what do you see for the future? I mean, I know we've got things like living fences and stormwater ponds that gather water and keep it clean and out of the lakes, and so there are so many aspects to this that are really thoughtfully integrated.
And that's why we wanted to make this podcast just as casual and as relaxed. With no notes and no preparation.
Exactly. I'm just thinking to myself, I know how important nature is, and I know it's part of this community, and how are we stewarding it? What are we doing?
And that's the amazing thing, that it's an iterative, evolving ideation of place and placemaking. So we're learning from some of these half dozen communities in the US, we're learning from some of these half dozen places in Canada, and we're using the stewardship principles that are articulated by a gentleman, Andreas Duani, who wrote the Smart Growth Manual on how to do smart growth. But he also wrote a book on how to have a light footprint environmentally. And a lot of it talks about preserving the stream corridors and doing a strengths assessment. What are our strengths? Well, we think one of our strengths is putting a perimeter trail all around the property so that nature and neighbor can coexist. And a lot of these things will take time and evolve. But the fact that we're trying to have a half or 1/3 the density that is suitable in a more urban environment like Ottawa or Toronto, it just leads to a different spatial perception, as it did when I walked with John Hawley in Niagara-on-the-Lake. And the first thing he did with me is, he said, you know all about the houses, let's go for a walk. So he took me to the 3 parks and the multiple gathering places. And we met people who were on their front porch, who were gardening, who were out walking their dogs, who were having a glass of wine on their front porch. And everyone would say, hey, come on over and come say hi. It's that informality that we hope to explore more about the land planning principles that are so necessary that I, quite frankly, knew many of them.
Sure.
But there were so many more that we're intentionally articulating in our master plan so that we can, hopefully this summer, show people how much of this land plan, as much as 25%, will be preserved with these walking trails and all these parks and storm ponds and all the interconnectedness, so that people realize this isn't just cookie cutter subdivision.
Right.
For instance, this Saturday morning I met one of our neighbors where I live in Stittsville. And no, I don't live here in Watercolour yet. Maybe I never will, as my wife would like to say. You know, we developed, or we're a part of 5 different communities.
Right.
But then when we had kids, we didn't live in our next 4. But we think that this is such a compelling vision. This gentleman, a neighbor, Saturday morning explained to me, he's just moved from near Gatineau Park.
Okay.
And he had a fat bike.
Okay.
And he said, I'm not going to go on my bike, put it in the car, and drive half an hour to the Gatineau Hills. He said, you know, behind where we live in Stittsville, there's 100-acre wood.
Okay.
And that's what we hope to bring to life here, is that people could realize over the next ensuing months as we release this concept plan of the whole community, that they don't need to necessarily go to Foley Mountain, even though it's only just a kilometer as the bird
it's not
flies.
far, and it's beautiful. And but it'll be another unique experience, and it's okay. You have to think the long range of this community is people coming here for a lifetime, and that diversity, and it's just a legacy too for Land Ark and for the homeowners. They're enabling a legacy of the land stewardship. They're indirectly empowering you to do things with this land, and they're buying into the whole concept of what you're going to do with the stewardship too.
And that's why this gentleman's saying he's just going to go ride his bike in his backyard. That's what we think of for many of these homeowners here. Is
even less carbon footprint. Instead of driving your car to go bicycle for an hour and then driving for another hour back. Yeah.
Yeah, and you said it to me one time, Wafa, is you don't have to drive to that place with the there that gets you wanting to go there.
Yeah.
Like there's so much here that people will still drive to Frontenac Park because that's a unique experience to go hiking there. But many of the people will realize this summer, we think, that there's just so much in this village, and we've already got 1 kilometer of trail that's walkable. And every year we hope to bring another few kilometers to life so that people can see these 10 or 12 kilometers of walking trail all along the streams and all along the perimeter, so that they can just go for a hike or a fat bike ride in their backyard.
Take their dog out.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you think that some of the lifestyle pieces, though, are helping people to connect at a deeper level? Like they have things in common, and we've heard some of the stories, but what are your observations so far? Like, what's coming to life in the individual interactions that people are having? Because you're hearing them firsthand.
I am.
And we're going to talk to those wonderful people.
And they're always so much more and better, real and different than I can ask or imagine, we say, in the sense that I think I only ever hear 1/10% of some of these really interesting relational dynamics that are happening.
Sure.
But for 2 gentlemen that we hope to interview, is they've become hiking buddies. Awesome. And like my wife and a lot of her friends this morning, my wife went running with some running friends, or she'll go walking with all her other lady friends. But guys don't connect that much necessarily. But through hiking and walking, and we have people in here just like in some of our other communities. The people who like hiking, they're going to go hiking.
Right.
The people who like biking, they're going to somehow put up, and
the golfers will meet up and play
and
there.
that's already happening too, is the golfers are already golfing.
The fishermen are out there in the morning seeing who's going to catch the first pike of the day. Yeah, that's really great. It's really exciting. Then there's when I talk about empowering the sustainability of the land, I know that the energy consumption and the efficiency of the homes is also empowering people. What was the inspiration behind trying to build a generation of homes that is the next generation, that is that future-proof housing?
Well, I knew getting back into home building, it was going to be walkable. And that's what we really want to talk about, is this whole, all the questions you've asked is we'll maybe dedicate an episode to, what we mean by some of these land planning terms.
Right.
Or touch on a few in episodes to come.
Yeah.
And so that's what really motivated me, is creating the walkable village, the European style village that was already pre-existing, that we just were lucky enough to be a part of. And now we've since learned that that can 1/10 reduce or tenfold reduce someone's carbon footprint. But what I wasn't aware of, really 7 or 8 years ago, until a friend from my church, Mark Wickham, took me out to lunch and said, hey, I want to share with you this idea of net zero, building net zero ready homes. Because even just going from being a gas heated home,
Natural gas,
natural gas, to being a fossil fuel free all electric home, that is statistically a 12-fold reduction in your carbon footprint as well.
Okay.
So when you combine the two of these ideas, which we don't know of anyone who's done that yet in North America actually.
Amazing.
Is a lot of the other builders are still designing typical suburban sprawl where you would have to use a car to get all your daily needs or connect. And work is one place, you live in another. And what we think Westport really also has going for it is this high-speed internet of 1 gig fiber optic to the door, really safe internet to the door, and coming this year, even 10 gigabit to the door if someone wants to run a business from home. So that's something that really also didn't exist. But particularly the net zero, we've talked about a fair bit on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, we do have a lot of content there.
Exactly. We have a lot of content there. And that's why the podcast is really going to talk more about the people and the land. Because this whole idea of placemaking, they call it, in a traditional neighborhood designed community, which when the gentleman John Hawley explained that to me in Niagara-on-the-Lake, I thought, I grew up in traditional suburbia. But what they're talking about is, what was life like before the car? How do you design a modern day community with cars?
Sure.
But with streets that are a little bit narrower, streets that have sidewalks, streets that have these beautiful street trees, a community where the homes are literally under a tree canopy in the backyard and a tree canopy in the front yard as well, and the whole street just has such a cooling effect environmentally by virtue of putting in and focusing on the trees.
On the trees.
And I've read so many books about trees and land planning that, again, 10 years ago, I just wasn't aware of how important land planning was.
Yeah. It does change the way it feels even when you drive through. Never mind when you get out of your car and start walking. There's a room to breathe. There's a room to feel like you're enveloped in nature, and I think that it's going to take time for all this to mature, but you get a sense of where it's going. Even you glance down the side yards and the backyards and you see the living fences that are on top of the traditional fences, which are still beautiful and aesthetically gorgeous, but enhancing those with the tree lines really has changed the look and feel of the community.
It has, and that, I feel like it's Christmas every day when the tree company shows up and plants 30 or 40 trees. It's just so beautiful. And there's just something about trees that is so mysterious and mystical, the impact they've had on me. And so my father and mother both grew up on farms, so wherever we lived in these 7 different houses growing up as a kid, we would build a fence and plant trees, and trees are really important to me.
Interesting. That's really interesting. I think that sometimes when you talk about placemaking, people are concerned, I would be concerned about kind of fitting in and what that's going to feel like. What do you think about? Like, what kind of stories have you heard? What do you hope to share with people when they hear this podcast about where they can fit in?
And I think there's something
because they're going to be uprooting, right? Like, moving isn't easy.
No.
Moving is really hard. And where you live is a big decision that you make in your lifetime. And most people, stay places for a significant period of time. And of course, there's anomalies and people that have to move with work, and the military people that, God bless them, will uproot whenever they need to. But the rest of us, we set down roots.
And the neat thing about Westport is the people here are particularly friendly. So it's perhaps like my parents who are farmers, salt of the earth farmers who are living and supporting all these 7 different restaurants that are in this town. So for a summer cottage life, summer lifestyle town, even in the wintertime, because we're part of the eastern townships, just like in Quebec, they have the eastern townships. Many have told me this is sort of the eastern townships of Ontario, where in Rideau Lakes Township we have a whole variety of villages of all different sizes that were a part of the making of that Rideau Canal, all the way from Kingston to Ottawa, but also these dozen odd towns that are part of the Rideau Canal waterway. And that's also what is so remarkable here, is there's something for everyone. One of our friends in the village here, as she has said, because of the multiplicity of things going on in this village, with the variety of people who have such interests, let alone in the adjacent villages, there's literally something for anyone of any interest for activities. And to me, that's one thing I've learned, is how do people become friends? How do they build those lifelong relationships? It's activity and proximity. So many new people are coming to the village, and it's bringing new homes and new life and new possibilities because of the social capital of the already existing residents being paired with the social capital of the people who are new to the village. And that blending and connecting is really, really building such a strong community base for things like the car show.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun last summer. I'm really looking forward to coming back this year. It was interesting to see the passion of people that have rebuilt these amazing vehicles, and the stories behind the ones that would open up the hood and show you, I got that part from New York State and I imported this from Europe and this is wherever, I'm probably elaborating incorrectly, but it's really interesting. Yeah. And it did bring people together.
And
hundreds of people, if not thousands.
Thousands of people.
Yeah, that came. Yeah.
So we hope to interview some of these amazing people, like Joe Aragona, who
they share their passion openly. And I think that, we ran a card making workshop at Christmas, and it was really neat to hear people just talking about their artistic creativity, and the ones that didn't have any. And there was a kindness and gentleness in the room of just allowing people to explore and learn something new and enjoy the company of others doing it, and I think that was really beautiful. So the car show environment was the same, because there were people there that know nothing of cars, but yet the hosts and the people that were having their cars on display were really kind and gently just sharing their story and making you feel at ease. It was really nice.
And the same with when we've had a chef here at the model home. You were at those events.
Yes.
Do you want to tell people about having?
Oh, yeah. Well, Westport is just really uniquely positioned with a winery, with watercolor. Walking distance from your front door, you can go and explore a beautiful winery, and the chef that is the owner and founder of it. He came to the model home and demonstrated some of his cooking skills and shared a recipe with everyone, and we got to ask questions and learn about, where he sources the perfect shapes of brie cheese that isn't a circle. He gets, and how to get those asparagus pieces just right on the crostinis, and it was delicious and entertaining, and certainly his passion for growing the grapes, his harvesting processes, and sharing all about what he envisions as a sort of a holistic approach to food and creating beautiful food for people to eat and to gather around. Like, food is so important in our world and in our culture, in our existence as human beings. And so it was lovely. It was really nice. It was welcoming, and like you say, it was a really nice experience to connect or to connect to neighbors and to have something that's nearby.
And that's
Amazing.
why we think watercolor is going to grow slowly but steadily. We've had the inspiration, and my number one strength is as a learner. And so I love learning about these other communities and what they did. And then what we've done is taken a lot of our education from people around the world, and we've Canadianized it or brought it back to our little home building business. Previously, my wife and I, now in Land Ark Homes 2.0, we have a whole different creative skill set of different people.
Right.
But especially with learning about how just a little bit of programming, putting on one event a month, has now morphed organically into many of the homeowners, like across the street, putting on their own Oktoberfest, and with another homeowner, her own chili fest in November. And
they had that like cook-off kind of thing where they sampled the different chilies, and somebody got a prize, I heard. A trophy of some kind.
And these things will ebb and flow. For instance, Francois and Alison Shireman, they had a rib fest once upon a time, and many things will ebb and flow. But it's this amazing blending, this amazing tapestry of these new relationships, connecting people and building community that we really want to highlight.
It's really, I think, inspiring. Again, we go back to that inspiration and that there are so many like-minded people that want to create these wonderful opportunities. The Stone Manor Studio in Newborough, I mean, where they've refurbished this beautiful historic property into a creative art space, and people are going and taking watercolor painting lessons or acrylics or different mediums, and connecting and learning and growing and expressing their own creativity. It's beautiful. Yeah. It
is, and that's why every time now homeowners are telling me about the restaurateur in Maitland, who similarly has this amazing opportunity for anyone who lives in the area who would like to come and learn how to cook and experience a world-class meal.
Yeah, I've heard about that place too. Haven't yet been there, but I'd like to go. We'll have to figure that out. Do you think that some of the obstacles that people face when it comes to making a big decision and transition to a new home, do you think that there's some commonalities? Like, are there things you've learned over all these years of watching people make these decisions that you think would be helpful for someone who's listening to this podcast?
I do, and we're going to hopefully try and do videos and podcasts expressing to people this idea of what we've learned, the minimum viable experience.
Okay.
And the idea is to try these 7 restaurants that are here through the year, so that if people come in the off season, they can try a meal at every restaurant if they're interested, if food is their thing.
Right.
And then the 2 wineries are open, from May to October. So that also, if wine, or we have a brewery in the village, we have a pub in the village, we have this 150-year-old inn in the village that also has an English pub style atmosphere to it that we hope to highlight. But 20 some years ago, the Chamber of Commerce had an expression, come for a weekend, stay for a lifetime. Come for a weekend, stay for a lifetime. And that's what we think we want to present to people, is this idea of it's always an invitation. It's never meant to be an obligation.
Sure.
If we can be someone's right next step on their journey of a new home and a new life and a new possibilities, great. But if not, maybe it's for their friend that they would come and explore it, as it has been for many people. We weren't their right next step, and that's okay. We're always trying to welcome people and say, hey, come. But this summer we want to get more intentional about letting people know, hey, maybe, come for a weekend, stay for a lifetime, but just if you experience 48 hours, then you might bump into, while you're walking around this neighborhood, many of the homeowners who live here who are out walking their dogs, or might be out gardening, or we might have an event like the bird guy we're having this summer, or it might be a wreath making workshop, or it might be something that tweaks their interest with some of these events that are going on as part of the greater Westport area, which, as I'm beginning to learn, Mayor Jones told me about the idea of the GTA, that where I grew up, the Greater Toronto area, but the Greater Westport area, some would say it expands all the way to Atlanta, Georgia, or Amsterdam, because I've met people in the harbor, and I've met people on Foley Mountain who are from Atlanta, or they're from Holland, or they're from Germany, and they have 5 generations of family roots going back into this area.
Amazing.
And that's where their heart is.
Yeah.
You know, they, just like me, growing up around the Greater Toronto area, and some of our homeowners here, it didn't matter where they lived. Their heart was in their summer cottage life town where they had so much fun as a child. And that's what we think is so amazing about Westport, is it can literally be someone's home and their cottage in one.
Yep.
And it just leads to such a different quality of life.
So making the change of, and making that decision, you think the next best helpful step then is to just come and stay for a couple of days. Just come and experience it, and then go home, regroup, think about it. How did you feel? And then come back and see us again and figure it out. Like, I feel like it's too much to bite off all in one foul swoop. Although we do know some of our homeowners have done it.
We do.
They walk in, they say, this is where I want to be. Where's the house? When can I move?
And we've had people, we say, buy a home in like 7 minutes, like people who we will interview on this show.
Yes.
And no doubt I'm probably going to be reaching out to another individual who it took them about 7 years.
Amazing.
And anywhere in between.
Right.
Again, this idea of it's not something we could ever tell someone about, because they'd never remember what we said. They'd never remember, you know, whether we gave them a bottle of maple syrup when they left as a thank you. But they will remember how they felt. And that's the thing that is so hard to articulate, is how someone feels when they get up in Foley Mountain and they look out at Spy Rock and they see the village. And it's very unique. It's not flat like Mississauga, Oakville. There's a lot of terrain here.
A lot of elevation change.
And if you're coming from British Columbia, it may not be a mountain to some people.
No, that's right.
But to many people, that European village lookout at Spy Rock, many people have been around this area their entire lives, and they're unaware of the beauty that can be experienced there. And similarly, one of our friends has spent her entire life coming to this area, and she was unaware of Sand Lake, Lions Club Beach.
Okay.
And so those are the things that we want people just to go to the beach. And as one person says, you know, they take their daughter down to the harbor for the sunrises, and they take their daughter also to Sand Lake Lions Club Beach to watch the sunsets.
Amazing.
And other people I know, just sitting in a chair in that harbor, they say things like, I feel calm.
Yeah.
And it's that idea of feeling at peace and feeling calm. You really have to experience those things for yourself to appreciate the difference that this little village might make to someone's life.
Yeah. It's really, you're painting a picture that I know sometimes we use the words that say that life just unfolds with greater ease.
Yes.
There's something just about the pace, the fact that there isn't a traffic jam. There isn't even a traffic light.
Correct. And one person moved here.
Stop signs, but you know, and people drive at reasonable pace, and there's not that sense of just the tyranny of the urgent and the rush of life, that you have moments to pause and reflect and think and just not be surrounded by constant bombardment of noise and activity and, you know, whatever, congestion. that just creates stress, and I'm sure has an impact on our long-term health and everything else. Like, there's so many components, it's really complicated, but yeah.
Yeah, frenetic busyness is not something I've ever heard anyone complain about here in Westport. It's rather time after time after time, people telling me they feel peace, they feel calm, they feel relaxed. And that's one of those things that you just can't even begin to put into words. You have to experience it for yourself.
Sure.
And that's why this whole idea of, you know, a 48-hour minimum viable experience. It doesn't have to be a weekend. It can be any time during the week.
Sure. Yeah. You can come Monday to Wednesday or whatever, Tuesday to Thursday, it doesn't matter. Yeah, those couple of days just gives you that chance to feel what it feels like. And I think it's important, though, to say that it's regardless of age category that people feel that feeling. You know, we have a homeowner who I hope you'll have an opportunity to talk to, and she's shared her story with us in writing, but that sense of coming here reluctantly.
Yes.
And then saying, wow, this was the best decision we ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a story to be unpacked there, too. And a mom of young children who felt that way. Yeah. I think that would be really beautiful. If you were to kind of imagine what would be one of the things that people could do to prepare themselves for a move here, besides coming and experiencing it, what else would you do?
Well, if they are serious, as some people are when they come in to the show home, to our sales center, we say, pick a lot, pick a plan, because we have more than 20 different home plans, and start packing. Because for some of our homeowners, they want to have the home of their dreams is one that might take 7 or 8 months for us to build, because you know, it's 6 months of construction, a month to get a permit, maybe a month to do their color selections, depending on how busy we are. But most years we build about half of our homes as move-in ready homes.
Which is really lovely, because those designer finished stuff is great. That somebody else has done all of that hard work for you.
Correct. And we'll hopefully interview our interior designer of more than 26 years, Brenda, and have her share what she's been learning.
Great, yeah.
About building and helping us make it so that if people, you know, want to put their home up for sale and be or moving in 30, 60, 90 days, we've got something for them. And we've also built half of our homes as pre-sale homes, where they pick a lot, they pick a plan, and I say jokingly, start packing, because in 7 or 8 months, you know, you'll be here. And so, yeah, it's just different when you're a small custom home builder. When you're a big production builder, you don't have this attention to detail, you don't have this attention to people, and that's what we're here to do, is love and serve people. And we say that word a lot, love and serve people, because that's what got me back into home building, is wanting to just love and serve people with a different sort of boutique home building experience that many have said they just can't find anywhere else at any price.
Right, yeah. It's funny when you say start packing, I think of the book that you shared with me, The More of Less, and the inspiration of downsizing and right-sizing to a footprint of a home that makes sense, that your things don't run your life and you're not driven by the accumulation of stuff. And maybe, I can't remember, some of the tenets of the book certainly were about the simplification and the joy and peace that brings too.
Yeah, and so we hope to interview over the coming years, because we think we'll be doing this for quite a long time.
There's a lot of watercolor stories to tell.
There are, and that's why these books that we give away to people, just because we think, hey, that might help them on their right next step, regardless of whether they buy from us or whether we ever see them again. But the book, The More of Less, How the Life You Want is Buried Under All the Stuff You Own by Joshua Becker. We often give away that book if we sense or perceive or feel, oh, that might help that person, or we'll often give away the Smart Growth Manual. So we hope to interview Andreas Dewani and Ross Chapin, the man who came up with the pocket neighborhood idea that we've learned so much from. And Sarah Susanka, one of the first architects that we learned about. Don't build more, build less, but with such articulate attention and meticulous attention to detail that you get a home where everything has its place. There's a place for everything and everything in its place. So hopefully we'll be interviewing some of these authors in the years to come.
Yeah, and I think some of the stories that you'll share too will be from homeowners who experience a greater quality of life because they have shed some of the stuff and gotten to the place where they live in a place that nurtures them as people.
Correct, because your stuff can rule you, or you can rule your stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that the pushback from sort of that tension that we all feel, I shouldn't call it pushback, it's the tension that we all feel with, I need to keep a certain amount of things to keep me, my memories grounded or whatever it happens to be. What do you think some of the solutions are for that? Like, how do people wrestle with that and then come to a better place?
And again, resources. A lot of people, we would point to the Netflix minimalism videos that have been done.
Oh, yeah.
Because Joshua Becker was interviewed in each of those. So he's a wonderful person. Because some people learn visually. They would learn by watching a movie. Some people would learn by listening to an audiobook. Some people would learn through reading a book. Many people would need to have someone bear witness to that story and share with them, hey, my life is better because I went through this pain. You don't have to. So a lot of these podcasts we hope to do will be just like that, is people sharing their story of how much freer they feel having gotten rid of a lot of this stuff.
The stuff, yeah. And that right size house that doesn't empower you to collect too much stuff.
Right.
Because, it's designed in a way to just sustain you really well. And be more sustainable in the long run too, because you've talked about the life cycle of homes and their impact on the environment, and the average home in the United States is got a 40-year lifespan?
49-year lifespan is the average home in the U.S., and we know that through sort of the guru of this movement to building net zero energy homes in the U.S. Sam Raskin is the architect behind that whole movement, and his book Housing Disruption 2.0, and he talks about, the average home in the U.S. is 49 years old.
That's
and I think
way too young.
The average home in Canada is probably not that much different.
Wow.
And yet these homes are meant to have a lifespan of more than 200 years. And at first, I questioned some of our building science experts. Is it okay for me to say that?
Right.
And he's like, well, the farmhouse you just took down, was more than 125 years old, Steve. Think of the technology that is in these net zero ready homes.
Right.
And they've assured me it's not inconceivable for you to point that 200-year benchmark as our point of reference.
Okay.
But it would depend
I know even
on,
like the exteriors with the siding that you use.
Yeah. And
it's like better for fire retardancy. It's better for heat loss. It's better for like just aesthetically better because it doesn't fade and you don't need to paint it. And so.
And we will hopefully be meeting the James Hardie rep, this wonderful siding, and many of our suppliers and tradespeople, because they have amazing stories too. Right. About their journey of how they've gotten into this industry and how thrilled they are that we're using, like, I think her name is Joanne Gaines, is the Magnolia lady.
Yes.
And she has a designer series of colors with James Hardie because it's the only one she wanted her name associated with.
Amazing.
And so many things are possible when, you're not in this for money, you're in this for the love of people and wanting to showcase to 1,000 communities across Canada, and we think 10,000 communities in the US, how building walkable neighborhoods with net zero energy, they call it in the US, or we also use that term, but net zero ready home simply means that the home is ready with the addition of solar panels to produce as much energy as it consumes. Right. So yeah, these homes use about half the energy of the average brand new obsolete home that really not much has changed in the 43 years I've been in home building. And we're building homes that are 11 years ahead of the curve, or now 10. So really there's about a 50-year gap between the obsolete homes that's why they get torn down every 49 years. They're just obsolete. And Canada's going to produce 250,000 obsolete homes next year. And we think it doesn't have to be that way. Just the same way finding a great place to live doesn't have to be hard. Finding a great home to live in for people and their families doesn't have to be hard either.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's a powerful influence on decision making for individuals to feel like they're leaving a better legacy with the home they buy. It's a significant investment for all of us. Buying housing is in Canada now barely unattainable for many, many people. And people that do buy a home, they want to make sure it's got lasting value. Like it's something that they can sell or hand down to the next generation. Like that was what happened in the previous generation, is people handed down the family home.
Yeah.
So this can be that kind of place.
We think so, and people knowing they have control, they have agency over their carbon footprint, that's a pretty big deal for a lot of people too. And knowing that they themselves are making a wiser stewardship investment in their next new home.
Yeah. Will you have opportunity to talk to people who have gone solar?
We will, and
awesome.
More and more of them are. Even somebody we both know who was kind of reluctant, thinking they needed natural gas fireplace and natural gas cooktop, and so they have had a solar installation recently whereby they have solar backup battery, and now they're in Florida for 3 months feeling very comfortable and safe and secure. So they will be one of the...
Their house can run remotely with...
First people we'll be interviewing is our mutual friend.
Okay. Is it expensive? What's the payback like? Is it worth doing from a financial point of view?
Many people are experiencing the payback in 10, 11 years. And that's the typical payback for a solar solution is about 11 years.
Okay.
And we think that that's worth it for many, many people.
Sure.
And as well, there are government incentives right now whereby it's interest free with the program. And so we think solar is a very viable option for many, many people.
Okay, interesting.
If they're interested, but we're also hoping to interview another homeowner who is our low price leader in the home. He has a wonderful line. The lower level living area, because of the spray foam underneath, is warmer in your home than on the main floor back home where he and his wife live.
Wow.
And so his energy bill is about $100 a month. And so he was sharing that with me last summer at the car show.
Okay. $100 a month.
Yes.
For everything.
$100 a month, all in for everything. And that's why... Heating,
water,
cooling,
you name it. Like
water is different.
Water heating, though.
Or water heating, yes.
Water heating, yes.
Yeah, water
like
heating.
we all need our hot showers and our laundry and all that stuff. So all of the power that is required for the home.
Correct. Whereas most families, it's about $150 a month. But, everyone is different, and it all depends on occupant load. But the home itself uses about half the energy of the average brand new home that gets built today.
Wow. That's a better quality of life again. Another thing that just makes it better.
Yep.
That's great. Any homeowners that you're looking forward to talking to about other subjects that we haven't talked about yet?
We'll just have to see how this all unfolds.
Sure.
But we're going to hopefully interview, since, we have about 65 happy families that are in the process, some moving in this spring and summer. calling Watercolour home, and we think, yeah, the more word gets out, the more they're able to help share this thing that's hard to articulate, is why are you moving to what some would call the middle of nowhere? And so we hope this will be a tool for them to help them share with their friends. It's not in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's so many great things going on in and around Westport that for a smaller community, there's just such life and a thriving, different, more and better quality of life that can help people flourish.
Yeah, and stories have a powerful way of just sharing the people's lived experiences that can be inspirational to others. Yeah, that's exciting. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing these conversations and being part of them.
And we so look forward to having you help us share them.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you for sitting through our first episode of Watercolor Stories, and for listening to some of the inspiration that we hope to share with you over the coming episodes. If you have comments or stories you want to share with us, we welcome you to leave them below. We'll be airing this podcast on YouTube and Facebook, and starting a conversation about how you could start your story here in Watercolor Westport. Thanks again for joining us.